Hello and welcome back. This is video 15 in the Flow Certified Coach training that we are doing here in 2020. We're going to be going through the 4D model, which is tile 13. And today it's my immense pleasure to have with me my brother Dan, who was actually there when the 4D model was invented and developed. Dan, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Andrew. It's an honor to be here and be part of the session today. I tell folks I'm an enigma. I've gone after lots of different things in my life and my career, and being a part of the project that helped make 4D a reality is really one of the fun things that I got to do in my career. This 4D model was created when a project at a major Fortune 500 company failed. A Salesforce automation project failed. And we were brought in to resurrect it and make it work. And so that's something that, this project failed so bad that we had internal audit coming in and auditing us every 6 months. It was that bad. And what I love about what we did with this 4D model is the fact that we had the internal auditor ask us after about 3 times of auditing us, how do you do it? And I said, do what? He said, I come, you tell me what you're going to do, you do it, I come back and see, oh, you did everything, but the things you didn't do was replaced by things that became more important and more valuable. How do you do it? And I realized at that point in time that we had created something that some people in the South say, that dog hunts. And so this is something that just really helped us accelerate our ability to be able to deliver value for the company, such that, and the first full year of operating with a whole implemented recovered project, we were able to save the company $29.8 million. That's just in the first year. And that's why I get excited about this 4D model.
Exactly. And how many years after that did they actually use that software?
Oh my, they used that software for another 10, 15 years. There were things that we architected from a data standpoint that we said, automated pricing needs this information. We identified it, we defined it, we distilled it, we put it into place, and basically just about 8 years after we did all of that work, a project was implemented at Steelcase in order to be able to use what we did. And the definitions that we put together at that point in time still stood the test of time. That's exciting.
So just off the top of my head, if we use double declining digits on the return on investment, that means that they probably received back well in excess of $60 million in value.
Oh, yes. So, oh, yes.
And that's just amazing when you really sit down and think about it, the downstream impact that this had. That's awesome. Usually in these videos right about now, we'd be talking about leadership takeaways. And you did such a superb job of walking people through the 4D model already, just with the first example, that I think that people can already start to sense the leadership takeaways here. And so when we talk about definitions, as you just mentioned, it took them 8 years before they could actually leverage the work that had been done in the definition area. And I've taught for years that definitions will make or break whatever you're doing. And didn't matter if it's traditional or agile or whatever you're doing. We're agnostic. I really don't care if you use a napkin to get your work done. The definitions will still make and break you. The distillation over the years has grown. Do you remember when we began with this, what was our favorite way to describe distillation? Do you remember?
There were lots of different ways we did that. From we're going to argue until there's no argument left. People are going to love it when we're done. What do you remember?
No, that exactly the same thing, except Ted used to use the visual of, okay, we're going to lock the team in a room and we're going to lock at the door, take the key, and nobody gets to leave until we agree.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
so that's where
we might slide pizza under the door, but nobody's leaving.
Exactly. We might unlock the door to let the pizza guy in and then throw him out after we paid and tipped him and then lock the door again. But that's exactly correct. And it was always, did you ever notice that typically the distillation of agreement pretty much coincided with when all the pizza was gone?
Yes.
You remember that?
It was like, okay, Uncle, this is what we're going to do.
It's like, okay, what he said, we're done, bye.
Mm-hmm. Now, remember when we brought in Brian Farish and some other, experts in the data modeling world?
Yes.
And they basically talked to us initially about, well, when you define a term, you may think you know what it means, but you really might not. And at the time, Brian and his friend Gary talked about, they worked at a phone company and they worked on defining phone number. Here's a term, phone number. And do you remember how long it took them to do that?
No,
it was. I was shocked. It took them 6 months to come to a distilled definition and agreement on phone number. Just because is a phone number an area code, is a phone number the exchange, is the phone number the last four that gets to your actual phone that you're going to talk on. And it
just kept going. Yeah.
And are you looking out to the customer who actually has a phone number, or is it a DID, I think is the term they use, a direct internal number. It's just
with the 4-code extension and everything.
All of that. But if you don't have it defined and you don't have it distilled, how in the world are you going to deliver a phone system to anybody?
Exactly. Nailed it. Spot on. And exactly, it's always if you don't get the definitions and distillation correct, what are you delivering? I
had an old boss, an old Marine sergeant who said, whiskey. He'd run around, whiskey. And I said, Charlie, what do you mean by whiskey? He said, don't do all this definition. Don't do all this distilling down. Why isn't somebody coding yet so we could deliver something, anything?
Yeah, just start coding and complaining. We'll get to the definitions later.
Oh,
I remember those days. That was pretty funny.
Yes.
And you were actually one of the people that was in the room when Drive was put at the top of the circle. Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, I think the term we were using at the time was communication throughout the organization. We were trying to say we're communicating the value of what we're delivering. We're communicating the vision of what we're delivering. We kept talking through all these things, and finally I said, time out. What we're trying to do is, especially with what we were doing with that failed Salesforce automation project, we defined what needed to be. I got to start over on this side. We defined, then we went down to distill, then we went over to drive things through. And what we were doing, we had specific, we had over 22 sales offices in the country. We had one, maybe two that we used in order to really figure out, are we delivering value to the organization? And then we would drive it out to all the other 20 locations. And so it was that nomenclature that we said, okay, we're over here, we started here, we distilled it, we defined it, and now we're delivering it, but we delivered it to one place. And now we've got to repeat that over and over and over again to be able to get it out everywhere throughout all of North America. And that finally I said, it's drive, people. It's drive. We're taking what we've delivered and we're driving it throughout the whole organization. It's how well are we deploying what we're doing. That's when it's deployed and it's permeated throughout everything. Now you are high performing and you have implemented something that will deliver $29.8 million in value on an annual basis. That's exciting.
That's drive. Well, exactly.
That is drive.
And if I remember right, you're the one who grabbed the marker and walked up to the whiteboard and wrote drive across the top.
That's right. I got rid of communicate. I looked over to our communication guy that was on the team and I said, sorry,
Bill.
Sorry, Bill. It's drive. And really it's not that you're going to be a bulldog and you're going to hammer and it's my way or the highway. It's people would come into our war room and sit down, and just the essence of what was in the war room. We had the values and vision of the executives up on the wall.
Up on one wall.
We had what our project, our mission was going to deliver. Our vision for the project up on the wall. We had, in today's terms, we had a product backlog. We had
the backlog up there. Yep.
We had everything out there. We had what was going to be delivered.
Yeah. You had the roadmap.
And the roadmap to make it happen. And then when people would come into the room, we would talk to them about something, and we would say, well, is that executive value something we're supposed to still be delivering? And of course, when we had a project sponsor in the room, they went, well, of course it is. Good. Well, then if we're trying to deliver that, then we have to be able to do this, 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 and this in order to be able to deliver that. Yeah. And one time I had a guy in the room, he was a director, and he came in, he wanted to sideswipe the whole project. He wanted to get his stuff in, and I used everything in the room, and when it was time to leave, he said, that was the nicest no I've ever heard in my whole life. And unfortunately, I agree with you for saying no.
Well, and that's beautiful, because that's a beautiful example of stakeholder management and influencing up into the higher levels of the organization. Mm-hmm. That's just beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's the piece that I protected the team, the development team, from, and they didn't have to worry about all of that. How do we say it in flow? Noise and politics, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, part of the friction analysis that's described in the other videos. Absolutely. Because the 4D model is a key part of the friction analysis, because if you don't have the right definitions, you get confusion. If you don't distill agreement, you get politics. If you don't deliver, you're going to have chaos. And if you don't drive, you end up with division. And stakeholders trying to come in and sideswipe your whole project.
Yes. and what's really fascinating is when you look at the 4D model, it really started out as 3 parts. Where you see define, that's where we said business.
Yeah.
We have to understand what the business is trying to do.
Yeah.
On the other side, where you see deliver, that's where we had technology and tools.
Yep.
Because and then where we had drive is where we had communicate, because we really needed to be able to communicate all levels of the organization so that everybody understood where they fit in and how they helped us be successful.
Well,
See,
actually, we moved that out to the triangle that surrounds the 4D model. So those still
yes,
exist. They're still there:
they,
business, content, tools, technology, communication. But those are in the
yes,
triangle. You'll see that in the flow, what is it? Flow in a nutshell slides. It's
yes,
still there.
yes,
We still
yes.
use that as a communication mnemonic, but it's still used. So,
Yeah,
but
and the key is people need to understand, in order for us to really hone the project, we had to define our terms better. We had to distill agreement on what that meant, and then that allowed us to be able to deliver and drive as
yeah,
we went through.
and what you mentioned about the business content side or the business side and the tools and technology side, that
Hmm.
distillation had to happen between those two
Yes,
groups. And that's where the
yes,
communication, a lot of times they thought they were communicating and they were missing.
correct.
And if we are precise in our language and everybody agrees on that definition, then when
Hmm.
we deliver, then it's really tough for the business to say, well, that's not what we asked for.
Exactly. You keep everybody honest and happy for what's
Exactly.
being delivered.
Yeah, exactly.
And
And
that's where you sit there, Andy, and you go, okay, define what?
mhm,
Well, you got to define your vision. You got to define your strategy. You got
yeah,
to define the people that are going to help make that happen. And then what are the tasks that it takes to be able to do that? Because if that definition isn't done, then how do you distill agreement on what the vision is and what the,
yeah.
I mean, because if you have, I mean, sometimes I, as one person, have three visions. You know, I don't, me, myself, and I don't agree all the time, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So how, we've got to be able to work through that. And when I, and you don't want to overcomplicate.
Yeah.
When somebody talks about strategy, oh man, think of a smoky room in the back, and people
Suits
bartering
and
back and
ties.
forth. You got it. And but at the end of the day, what is a strategy? It's a to-do list. What's your action
Yeah.
in order to be able to get from A to B? How are you going to do that?
Yeah.
How are you going to be able to make that happen? Well, that's a strategy, you
Yeah.
know. But you got to go from to do to done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Exactly.
and
Uh,
because that's you deliver it, and then if you really deliver is one thing, but then if you want acceptance throughout the whole organization, oh, wait a minute, don't tell me. That's called transformation.
mm-hmm.
And the way you make transformation is you drive it through
Yeah.
the organization. And so if you think that you're over here for define, you come down to distill, you get over here to drive, and then we get up here to deliver.
Or you mean
Well, when
the
right, I
other way
mean
around?
drive, deliver, drive,
Yeah.
right. And so when you're up here at drive, you're sitting there and you're going, well, sometimes I have to make the loop back to deliver, and because now I'm going to go from Atlanta to Chicago to LA to Seattle. So
It
you're
ends up
you're
being
doing
iterative over and
you're doing
over.
an iterative as you're going through. But do you know what happens? As I mean, you think, hey, I'm delivering the perfect product. I'm delivering the perfect service. I'm delivering the perfect result. Well, it worked in Indianapolis, but now it's not working in LA. What do you do? Well, many times when people try, I mean, this is stuff we taught our team.
Yeah.
Many times our team, other teams would say, "I just got to change what I'm delivering," and they just start making all these erratic changes
Yeah.
instead of going all the way back to define.
Yeah. What's the definition? Yep.
Where did we miss it?
Yep.
Because it really should have worked in Indianapolis and LA.
The same
So
way.
we missed something in our definition. Can we distill that down now that we have new information from LA? can we just distill that, saying this is what we're going to deliver? And then if we can do that, now we can go and create it and deliver it.
And what's really cool about that is you just described what they now call retrospective.
Yes.
Looking at what we just did, how do we make it better? How do we take the new information, plug that in, go through the process, and keep getting it better and better and better? So
yes.
it's just, we were doing everything agile 25 years ago.
Yes. We just didn't call it that.
We didn't call it that.
What was also fascinating to me was, it's when you talk about money and you talk about budgets, and all of a sudden people want their projects to be funded and not yours, right? And
politics.
Yeah, big time. Politics.
Yeah.
And so you sit there and you say, okay, now we have something. We actually became entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Because of our model. We were able to say, here's our vision, this is what we're going to deliver. And we had the Canadian division wanting some stuff before we could get it to them. Now, did we say no? Did we just say no? We said, Canada has budget dollars. If they want to get up to the front of the line and get their stuff into what's going to be delivered, cool, because if they have budget dollars, we can hire more resources. We can do everything we were going to do with the budget we had, but then more.
Yeah, exactly.
And what was fascinating to me was, if it was important enough to do, somebody had the budget in order to be able to fund it.
It's amazing how that works.
And that's what I love about when we sat down with some of these product owners and stakeholders, and they saw what we were delivering and how we were delivering it. And that, hey, I mean, it goes back to what the internal auditor said. How do you do this? Well, we do it with the 4Ds.
Exactly.
We've defined, distilled, delivered, and we dry. And now there's a lot of stuff in there, but that's what we did.
Yeah. And what you just did was a beautiful example of the application, becoming entrepreneurial. And we've been, like you said, we've been doing this since 95. It's iterative, it's agnostic. And I love it how you were able to use it with so many teams and so many projects, because it just didn't stop with the SFA project. It went into other projects that you were dealing with, and just sort of grew throughout the entire organization.
You're right. I mean, I moved out of IT and I moved into corporate quality. I was the guy in charge of all things quality for the corporation. And that meant I had to integrate ISO 9000. I told my IT staff that I'd rather be gagged with a spoon than have to do something with ISO 9000. But yet there I was, I had ISO 9000.
Yeah.
VP said to me, I like the way you think, I like the way you approach process, and I want you to fix this. So that's what we did. We went from the 94 standard to the 2000 standard on the first attempt. No major
corrections
or anything like that. We got certified on the first time.
That's
amazing. And over the next 4 years, we pulled $1 million a year out of the quality system. We integrated everything from a definition standpoint of Lean Six Sigma, Sarbanes-Oxley, because we went public. We, in my spare time, we added ISO 14,000.
I was waiting for that one. Yeah.
9,000. All of these things. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
Because we had the model to be able to say, how are we defining it? How are we distilling it? And then we're going to deliver it. And then once we get it in one plant, we're going. I've attended that movie before. I have a T-shirt and the popcorn bowl. Exactly. We just go through and deliver. So that is just fascinating that it worked in a totally different organization within a very large international corporation. And then I went out on my own, and I did it for a very small organization that, was $1-2 million in sales, and there were 2 or 3 sister companies, and we did the same thing. That we implemented things that basically saved them. They were able to implement their healthcare costs in 2008, 2009. We did a program that stopped their healthcare costs at the 2007 level for the next 4 years.
Wow.
So it doesn't matter if you're saving $29.8 million a year or a couple $100,000 a year. It's major, depending upon what the revenue structure is that's going on. And this dog hunts.
Exactly. And what's beautiful about what you just shared is that it's duplicatable.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, it was super having you with today. I really appreciate it. It's awesome having one of the original team members with to share about the 4D model. And look forward to having you with in another video again sometime soon. Thanks.
All right. I look forward to it. My pleasure. Take care.
Thanks. I'm going to stop recording now.